And is that everyone, Lori?
Everyone so far.
Okie doke. Great. Well, then, welcome everyone to the February 21st, 2024 conservation meeting. Oh, those decades go by. Um, and I of Dover, Massachusetts. And Lori, could you read the open meeting law waiver here, please? Or not waiver, but the instructions for Zoom.
Sure. Following guidance issued by the governor regarding the open meeting law, this public meeting will be held remotely. Individuals wishing to participate may do so using Zoom video conferencing. To join the meeting using a computer or tablet, you may use the link listed on the agenda or call the phone number and enter the ID and passcode. And the meeting is being recorded.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Starting off, we've had a couple continuances, so we'll be starting tonight with a request for a certificate of compliance, 7 Ledgewood Drive. That's Cheney Engineering. And let me just roll down to okay. So Janet, why don't you can you fill us in on you had some comments on that relative to what may be necessary to close that out?
Sure. So this order of conditions, it has expired, but the COC came in with an as-built plan and a letter of certification. I did meet Artie out on the site. And after reviewing the file, the homeowner was also at the site for my site inspection. There was a restoration within the 25-foot. At the time, we just had a 25-foot no disturbance. There was a area of restoration that was required. When I was out there, about 90% of it was not there. I saw no plantings. I think the homeowner indicated that the plants had died and had not been replanted. So I indicated that before we could issue the COC, we would need to have the plantings reinstalled. And then we would consider the COC. Generally, we do require 2 growing seasons of new plantings. So that's something the commission could take up. I don't believe the homeowner's moving. I think this was just to clear the title. So my suggestion tonight is because the order of condition has expired, we can't enforce that. So my recommendation, as we've done in the past, is to issue an enforcement order requiring that the plantings be installed. I included in my report 11 of our standard restoration conditions that we would add to the enforcement order. In addition, there were a number of boulders to be installed, which were installed to show the limit of lawn, but they were installed 4 to 5 feet into the restoration area. So one of the conditions I'd also, in addition to the restoration, that the boulders be placed as they were required.
Okay. Do you have a ballpark idea of this restoration within the 25-foot buffer? What sort of square footage we're dealing with? Or how many plants?
I don't have that. Maybe,
Okay.
I don't know if Artie can pull up the original approved site plan that
no, as a matter of fact, Artie warned me this morning with a phone call that he's out of country and doesn't have access to bring things up. I don't know if Lori, would you have access to those files? I know you're remote as well.
If you look at the as-built plan, we have shown the square footages that was approved.
And do you know what ballpark what we're looking at? Well, you may not know actually, because you're
well. I'm trying to get creative with the phones, so if you give me a moment.
Okay.
Oh, here it is, John. It's 1,613 square feet.
Oh, okay. So it's not a like 40 square foot area. It's a reasonable size area. And
That's right.
and how many shrubs were supposed to be in there? Was it?
I might be able to help with that.
Oh, okay, I didn't know you were,
Debbie. Hi.
okay, I didn't know you were, related to this.
I
Go ahead.
am. Yeah.
Thanks.
So I
Good.
was on the site. So they were to plant 3 river birches,
Mhm.
12 high bush blueberry, 12, I think it was like bayberry or something like that.
Well,
Um, do you know what it was already offhand?
uh,
Or Janet does, was it?
yeah, the plan says mountain laurel, 12 mountain laurel. and
Okay.
Okay, it makes sense. Uh-huh, yeah.
And
So
then-
basically, go ahead.
And then the area was not to be mulched. It was supposed to be seeded with a conservation wildlife seed mix, which it did not appear that had been done.
Mm-hmm.
So the 3 river birch are there and they're in good health.
Mhm.
They have been installed.
Good.
So I know the owner would like to go with the same plantings,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and just make sure that they are watered.
Does that appear to be what may have happened to, what caused their demise before was a lack of watering or?
Yeah, and I think he said that the specimen seemed a little on the small side when they installed them. So, and they did remove the mulch from the area. That was part of the conditions. So that did occur.
Was that, did the mulch occur recently or was that back then?
So that was back then, and
Back then.
they did
But
remove.
there's no indication of a wild mix being laid down in its stead.
I mean there is a mixture of vegetation there. I mean it's definitely not lawn.
Mhm.
But it's difficult this time of year to determine exactly what is there, what is going to be coming in the spring.
Okay.
Just a
So
question,
Jen,
John, if you don't mind.
what's that, Jim?
Weren't these conditions part of wasn't the monitoring part of the restoration plan that was supposed to be done and we kept asking for reports on this?
I'm not sure because this is 2017, I think, so it may have
But
predated
this was
that.
the one that they cut out in the backyard there, and then there was a fight with the neighbor about the trees, and then
No.
Oh,
this is
No,
a different one.
This is
Yeah.
a different one. On this
Okay.
project, there was a shed inside the 25-foot buffer. And what you guys approved is for him to remove the shed outside the 25-foot buffer and move it on the right-hand side, which he
Mhm.
clearly has done, and we have shown it on the plan. There was no fight or anything.
Was
The
it-
way,
What was the other, was there a larger scope to the project than just moving a shed or?
Is
the,
it the Pen Draper?
No, we're on 7 Ledgewood.
Okay, sorry, my apologies.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
So the scope, originally the project started 10 years before in 2007. We did the work for the septic system that is, if you're facing the house on the right-hand side. 10 years after the septic work was done, the homeowner decided to put a patio on the back of the house with an addition. We have and included putting a dry well. And at the time, in 2017, Deb verified the wetland, put new flags on the area that was impacted. And we showed it on the plans, and and also the homeowner had planned on putting an addition on the right-hand side of the house toward the septic area. And that addition on the right-hand side never got done. However, on the back of the house, the patio and the addition is done and is shown on the plan. Boulders at the time were not put, so we asked the owner to put boulders, and the site contractor put the boulders where he thought the lawn line was without measuring from the plan or having us mark anything on the ground. So when we went to locate the boulders this time, we found that the boulders are, anywhere 4 to 5 feet, depending on how you look at it, but at least 4 to 5 feet away from the original lawn line. What we believe happened is that the project started, work got done, and maybe the lawn creeped out more than what was originally there. So imagine 3 years after construction, they go, or 4 years after construction, they go to put boulders in, and it might have been that the lawn was further away, or, you know, there was moss on the ground. We don't know what happened. We were not part of that conversation. But
Mhm.
what we do know is that the boulders are further away. After the homeowner met with Janet on the site and then subsequently with Deb, he agreed on having those boulders put on the correct location and the area be planted accordingly as per approved plan.
Okay. And do you, when you were out, did you happen to, did you survey the line? Did you put any stakes in the ground where the boulders are supposed to be at this point?
No, at the time, we just located the boulders. You know, it was felt that the boulders were the owner believed that the boulders were on the right location, and it didn't make sense at the time to move them.
Mhm.
So now he realizes that there's a bigger issue and he doesn't want to deal with it. So the path of less resistance on his end is to move the boulders on the correct location.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is, he's more than willing to comply with the original order and, do the plantings and move the boulders. Is that the, Jen, is there anything else outstanding on that original order conditions that, may not have been called out or that you could tell?
No, I think that was it. There were some just minor little changes, but nothing significant.
Okay, and was the addition, was that part of the original, is that within the 100-foot buffer?
On the back, yes, and we have
Yeah.
shown it on the plan. So
Okay,
if
so you
you're
located that and that's all where it was supposed to be?
yes, the patio is located as 0.8 feet closer to the corner of the garage, and it's 1 to 2 feet larger. Patio is 1 foot closer to the wetlands, and owner believes that this is not detrimental to the resource area. There was a porch and swing set on the septic side of the house that was not constructed. The shed, instead of being 40 feet away, I mean, it's like 38.4 feet away from the wetlands, the relocated location. And again, being on cylinder blocks, it doesn't make sense to us to move it.
Okay, thanks. So Janet, in order to properly do this, we're looking at roughly 25 plants. You vouch for the trees looking, being in decent shape, and to move the boulders. Is that the extent of things?
Yes, so full compliance with the restoration plan is outlined in the order of conditions, and then relocating the boulders. And then my 11 in particular corrective actions outlined in.
Okay. And so these are typical things that may not have been on the original order of conditions, but we now require on the majority of orders of conditions. Is that correct?
And enforcement orders.
Yeah, because the what we've historically run into, and you're aware of this already, we now require monthly updates so that we know that people are actually doing the work and doing it properly. Is that included in this, Janet?
I did not include that, but it's 6 months or biannually monitoring reports of the restoration area.
Okay, so I would think that why don't we, for at least the first year, we would make that a quarterly. So the goal would be to get these plants in by June, by the end of June. Does that seem
And
reasonable?
the owner intends to do that.
Okay, so yeah, so I think,
Our goal would be that once the planting is done and the boulders are moved, we intend to file with Conservation Commission a new as-built plan showing boulder locations. Showing, and that way you will have the as-built plan. And we would ask from the commission to issue a parcel certificate because the planting, you're going to require the monitoring. That way, as far as paperwork wise, at one point in time, I believe the homeowner was considering putting the property on the market. I
Mhm.
don't believe that that's not the case. I
Mhm.
don't know what his plans are.
Mhm.
So I do know that he was okay with moving the boulders and doing the planting again as per the approved plan. We have not communicated with him the additional 11 items that
Mhm.
you are requiring for the enforcement order.
Mhm.
It might be, I mean, I don't think we can plant anything at this point of the time.
Mhm.
The homeowner is being cooperative and willing to work with conservation. I think it would be a good idea that we provide him with a preliminary or enforcement order, him to
Mhm.
review and have him feedback. So
Well,
maybe
so here's the
next.
thing. So I appreciate that. I think I think the commission's view on this is that the enforcement order is really not open to review, and this
Okay.
is what we're really looking at doing is just requiring you to do what was originally agreed on. And
Okay.
that's and that seems fair. And then what we're saying is, in order to ensure that, follow these rules here, which all they do is they take up more space than time they'll actually take to do.
Okay.
You know, and so I think it's perfectly reasonable for us to issue an enforcement order. Have you, we know that you probably would not be working this until May, which is understandable. And just notify Janet when before you're ready to start per these 11 items.
Yep.
And we'll just get this over and done with. So
One more item that we had pointed out on our letter was the fact that we couldn't find at the Registry of Deed the recording of the original order of conditions. This
mhm,
is a land-courted property. Maybe we missed it. We couldn't find it on the records, either
mhm.
on the registry section or the land court section. I don't know in the review that Janet had to the files if she found anything differently, but the
Mhm.
question remains that it might be a good idea to see if the original, at the time, it used to be that the agent recorded the order of conditions at the Registry of Deeds.
Mhm.
It might have been misplaced, but if the original order is still available, it might be a good idea that that order of conditions get recorded
Mhm.
before you actually record the enforcement order, because legally you don't have that document on record at the registry, to the best of our knowledge, unless Janet
Okay,
finds something.
it's an interesting point. The uh, certainly Lori can look into the files. I don't know if you had a chance to open this particular file up, Lori.
No, I don't have the files. Janet has the files. That's
Oh,
why
in
I
the
was looking
2017.
to look
Okay,
at those today.
okay.
John,
Janet.
I can confirm that the original order of conditions was recorded at the Norfolk County Court. There's a document in the file showing date stamped with the page and the page number, book and
Book and
page.
page. Hmm. And was it contemporary with the order of conditions back then? Or was it later or?
No, it appears it was very close to when it was issued.
Okay, so,
The other
go
thing I
ahead.
wanted to state for the record, the homeowner was provided with my notes and all of our enforcement order requirements back on Monday.
Mhm.
So I did get a copy of those.
Okay. So I think, so it looks like that's all recorded already. So I think our next step is just to, vote on an enforcement order,
Okay.
to, basically bring things up to what the original order conditions required. And,
Okay.
along with these 11, special conditions. And
Okay.
then we'll just, you and Deb can make sure it happens. And I would expect you to give Janet a call in a couple months to get started.
Okay.
So Janet, is there anything else before we vote on an enforcement order that you'd like us to that we're missing here?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, great. I'll entertain a motion to issue an
Sure.
enforcement order.
Sure, move to issue an enforcement order for 7 Edgewood Drive for the purpose of restoration, the compliance with the restoration planting plan implementation.
And the boulder,
And yeah, and the limit of
Lawn.
lawn, yeah, sure, marking.
per the original locations, projected locations. Okay, entertain, second,
Second,
thank you. All in favor, Tim,
Aye,
Anna?
Aye.
Sarah?
aye.
I'm an aye as well. Do we have anyone else on?
Jim
Oh,
on.
I'm sorry, Jim. Yep, you're in a different corner on my screen. Thank you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and have that issued. Jan, your hands up. Is there anything else?
Yeah, so separate to the enforcement order, and I put this into my notes. It was a concern that the certificate of compliance request, which we rely on the accuracy of that to document that the current existing conditions complied with the oral conditions. So the certificate of compliance that was issued by professional land surveyor Arbin Zahuri from Cheney Engineering indicated that the restoration work, I can read it to you. It says, area inside the 25-foot buffer is restored with approved vegetation. And that was inaccurate.
Mhm.
Can you please read the whole sentence? The whole paragraph? Don't take stuff off. Don't pick and choose. Read the whole paragraph, whole note.
Of that paragraph that Janet's talking about there?
It's item number 5 that I have said it. She has to read the whole thing. You can't read only half of the thing.
I will.
Read.
It says, area inside the 20-foot buffer is restored with approved vegetation. And then in parentheses, see proposal 331-2018, which I could not find in the file. But the bollards, and in fact, they weren't bollards, they were boulders.
Boulders, yeah, it's a typo.
It says,
Okay.
but boulders are installed 4 to 5 feet inside the restoration area. My point is that the certificate of compliance letter stated that the restoration had been done with the approved vegetation, which was not accurate. And so I just felt, as the person reviewing this information, I needed to bring that to your attention. And this was a similar situation that occurred at 10 Draper, where the original certificate of compliance letter did not show the deviation that we have been dealing with.
You are incorrect. You are incorrect. Please, Jen.
I don't think so.
Okay,
Please
so
do not-
here's, excuse me, let me just interrupt here, okay? I spoke to you today and to Janet. There's a difference of opinion on this, and I believe that this is best handled out of the meeting so that we can clarify what it is that the board is looking for in a certificate of compliance request, okay? And I think we can handle that sometime next week. And I don't see any reason for that to take up time this evening, because it's I don't think it's instructive until we have an ability to deal with it directly.
I understand, but I would like the board to take a vote if at all possible. What's happening is that I do believe that the claim that Janet is making on her report, which was distributed not only to the commission members, but to Dover residents and other consultants, is, the best way I can put it, is inaccurate. She's making statements saying that Cheney said this, when we have nowhere on the letter is saying she's making up statements. So
Artie, can I just ask
Richard?
you, what is your standard for accuracy? Like what's the expected standard with your drawing? And can I rely on your drawing to accurately depict what's on the ground?
there is no question about the
I
accuracy.
wholeheartedly disagree with you, Artie, right
Okay,
there.
so-
And this
so
is a
let me-
personal thing.
let
And
me
what
just,
is
ju- let me, so,
what
time
on
out.
the-
Let me just jump in, okay? For tonight's property, Janet, if I understand this correctly, the main concern, they called out the boulders being located in the wrong location. There was vegetation there, but it was not the correct vegetation. Is that the extent of their oversight on this particular project, of not recognizing that the called for vegetation was not there, that there may have been other vegetation, but they didn't call out the particular vegetation that was required. Is that the extent of what we're looking at for 7 Edgewood?
I think perhaps that minimizes the extent of the inaccuracy, but
For 7 Wedgewood, I mean Edgewood, or not in general, but for 7 Edgewood.
yes. And also, the original order of conditions showed all the plantings. So
Mhm.
that's something Cheney added to the original order of conditions approved plan. But they were not shown on the as-built, and yet the certificate of compliance cover letter again stated that that 25-foot buffer was restored with the approved vegetation. So I'm just saying there was.
And continue, it was based on the letter that was provided by the owner saying, this is what I planted. We saw the.
Yep, I understand that, Artie, but I also understand that this is February. I don't know when you did the survey there, if it was January, or
February.
December. Was it
February.
January?
In
Okay,
February,
so,
the day before we were there.
okay, so it would be hard to see if that vegetation was there in the first place, number one. And so my question, and Artie had brought this up to me, and this is just on this particular case here, that granted, I think you've recognized now basing things on a homeowner's explanation is not necessarily the right thing to do, but even if you said that there was revegetation and an apparent restoration, you'd still, at this time of year, it's a tough thing to vouch for. So I think, excuse me, let me just finish. So I think there's that, there's maybe a particular part there that rankled Janet, because, and I believe Jim may have been willing to go there as well, is that on 10 Draper, it was off by a mile. And so we just want to make sure that if there
That's
is some,
what Janet is saying.
if
But
there are some policy issues, this is something that is best to go over in a separate meeting so it doesn't take up time and take things away from people. And then once we come to a conclusion, we can make that public so that you can, feel, that we can address that on a public basis. But I'm not going to eat up public time to go over things that much of the board agrees with Janet on for certain other projects. Let's figure that out off meeting, so that we don't take away from other people's time for this evening's meeting. And so that's the way we'll handle that. Somebody will be in touch with you next week in terms of of getting together. And the clarification here is we want to make it clear on a policy basis what your requirements are and what you can vouch for and what you can say that you're not sure of. So that, and we clearly need to touch base with the contractors that you're involved with to make sure that they look at outstanding orders and reference them appropriately. So that's all I want to hear from that for the rest of the night, because we have other people to deal with. We appreciate you bringing it to our attention, and we will handle this outside of this.
I have offered to meet, and I expect to do that hopefully in person.
Oh, yeah. So once you're back, absolutely. Give me a ring and we'll set it up. Okay?
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Enjoy the balance of the week.
Thank you.
Let's see. Next up, yes.
Clarification, did the board actually vote to issue the order of conditions?
Good point.
Before-
Yes, we
Yes.
did. Yes, we
They
did.
put
We did,
Yeah,
Okay.
we did.
we did.
Mhm.
Definitely.
So, next up is 1214 Miller Hill Road. A review of where things are at the moment. And Paul, why don't you start us off with that?
Yes, thank you. Paul McManus, from Ecotech for the commission. Yeah, I've had some very productive meetings offline, with the two, restoration ecologists. I see Steve Roberti here. I don't see, Mr. Paulton. I guess he's not on, but we had some productive discussion. What came out of that was some consensus about some things that differed in part from original enforcement order, from Steve's original draft of the restoration plan, and some kind of policy questions. So really at my suggestion, Steve kind of boiled those down and wanted to put them, again, at my suggestion, put them before the commission to basically get some concurrence. The three of us agree on all of these points, but we felt it was worthwhile to put it before the commission. You know, things, so I think maybe best bet would be if I can turn it over to Steve, and maybe Steve, bring up your letter and just run through these. I'm hopeful that none of these are really controversial, but they're important points that really Steve needs to get settled in order to finish his protocol.
Okay, excellent. Hand it over to you, Steve.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Steve Riberty from Goddard Consulting. Yeah, so Paul summed it up pretty good. Yeah, there's the points that we wanted to bring up tonight are more overarching things that kind of set the structure, so we can kind of refine the details. Paul and Chris and myself, we've been working through some of the smaller details as well. So I don't want to sound like we're not doing other things, waiting on this part of it. We're still doing some of the bigger stuff as well. But some of the bigger overarching things that we did discuss when I presented the restoration plan a couple weeks ago was, I don't know if you want me to share the letter. There's just a couple points I can just read.
No, feel free. I think that it's always nice to have
Yeah,
a
let me
visual
see
aid,
if I can
so if you can.
share without messing anything up here. That shows up on the screen. You guys see them?
Yep, there it is.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah, so the big things that we want to kind of just, I think, all agree to in principle, and as Paul said, the three of us kind of do, is formally setting that the restoration planting will occur in the fall of this year, not the spring, because that, working backward from that sets a lot of the timelines and everything else. The other one is the use of herbicides. I know we went back and forth on that, but the three of us kind of were all in consensus that the herbicides were the best way to go. Obviously, we didn't put any detail to this yet. We wanted to, get formal concurrence that the commission was okay with it. But it's going to be heavily caveated, heavily limited, lots of caveats on when and where and how things happen to make sure, the minimum is used to get the job done, being careful not to overcast, overspray, and, hit non-target species, all that type of stuff. We're going to refine the details on that to make sure it's, very targeted and very specific. Plant substitutions is another thing that we don't want them to happen, but, in reality, I think every restoration site I've done, you need to substitute something at some point. We really want to try to hold the tree sizes if at all possible. And, if we have to substitute out a species as opposed to substituting out sizes, we're doing some research now to make sure there's availability in the general volume of plant stock that's in the planting plan. The fencing we've talked about, where I think Chris was the original one that brought up, the electric fencing, might be hard to maintain. There's a lot of maintenance and stuff that goes with that. We all kind of came to the consensus that that's probably not the best way to go. We're probably going to put something in the restoration plan where it's an either or. We're both okay with either or, right? It would either be fencing, like more solid fencing around the whole site, temporarily, or, caging off individual plants. They both gets to the same goal, and we might leave it to the contractors to, whatever one works better for them. But we may, define out both options and see which one, contractors come back with.
Mhm.
And then I think the last point on here was the irrigation system. Some of that's going to be dependent on if we change the timing, the amount of water that's needed, but we're probably going to define the amount of water, a volume per unit time type of situation, and then let the contractors come up with an irrigation plan, which will then have to go through all of the commission and us to, finally sign off on that plan to see if it's, adequate to meet the needs. But there's so many variables in the irrigation, as we discussed last time, that's really hard to set it in stone now.
Mhm.
So those are the
that-
5 main points. I think if we discussed them, I think in general last time in the kind of the group setting, and I think we all kind of settled on it. And then Chris and Paul and I all came, kind of refined that better and kind of came to the same consensus. But I think we just want official consensus from the commission that that's what we're going to do, because then that's what I'll, refine the restoration plan to have these elements in them. And, this is kind of, these are more overarching structural things that set a lot of the details, instead of having to do that and come back and change this, and then we have to refine a whole bunch of other stuff,
Mhm.
just to keep things moving in the most expedient manner.
So this allows you a little bit more flexibility. You're looking for permission to be flexible as you move forward on availability and how you adjust to on the ground situations.
Yeah,
That is definitely part of it, John, because,
Mhm.
Steve, and I understand his concern. Steve didn't want to get in a situation where, something happens out in the ground, it's time to plant, they're mobilized to plant, and something happens, perhaps the plants that he had lined up somewhere, that, all of a sudden those plants are infested, and he goes to inspect them and they're not acceptable. But it's time to do the planting. So he wants some flexibility built in to be able to just react to that in an appropriate timeline.
And in terms of alternate species, that sounds like the appropriate thing would be to have a list of potential alternate species that would be that you could move on to if the other ones are not available, as opposed to coming up on the fly there. Or what are your
That's
thoughts
something
on
we
that?
could do. Yeah, we can make a list of possible alternates for sure.
And which doesn't exclude if you run across a cache of available trees that weren't outlined. You certainly make your case that they're an appropriate substitute. And commissioners, any questions on this? I think Steve, you can take that screen down.
Sorry, yeah, I'll stop the share.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is all common sense. The key underlying thing here Chris is in. The key underlying thing here is that there is cooperation between all parties, which is very heartening.
That's what I was gonna say. It seems like everyone's communicating very well, which is great.
And then Chris, did you have anything to add? I know that you come back in.
Hi, everybody. No, just to say, yeah, I agree. We're communicating and things are good, and I'm supportive of the process and enjoy talking with Steve and Paul about it. I think we're in alignment on the goals and some of these points that have been brought up. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Ken, how are things? How do you view things?
Talking to me?
Yep.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah.
No,
On my screen,
we're-
you're the only Ken, so.
Yeah, okay. I think we're comfortable with the plan as developed. We'll see. There's some other issues that we're working out. Hopefully they'll be worked out, but I think that's more of a private thing.
Okay. And let's see, looking at attorneys, Mr. McGregor?
Here,
Hi.
yes, you should.
And so just say this is,
can approve
this is
this
a
report.
decent step, and I just wanted to get your feedback before we move
Yeah, this is
forward.
a progress report and there's progress.
Okay.
And the
Great.
recommendations that are telegraphed to you by the triumvirate of CERPs, you should react favorably for. I think you should say steady as you go.
Okay. Great, thank you. And Peter Brooks, anything to add?
The only thing I was going to add concerns finding the contractors and the material that's necessary. We have received bids. We are reviewing those bids. There's some clarification of those bids that's required. Obviously, we can't get final bids until we have a final restoration plan. But that is also moving forward as well.
Great, thank you. And Sally, I don't know if you, how TTOR's take on this is.
I think, yeah, I mean, things are moving in the right direction. Chris, did you want to mention what we're talking about, the contractor specs?
Or I think that was represented in a recent letter, and Paul, Steve, and I discussed it, and we're in agreement too that you know, having some contractor specifications towards experience with this type of project would be desirable. And I know the trustees team would like to see that as a condition, so that there is a suitable contractor selected who has expertise in ecological restoration, because we did notice that one of the firms that had put a bid quote in didn't seem like they had that experience, and I think that experience will really improve the project.
So I think that, yeah, I think that sounds like an excellent caveat to incorporate, so that you the idea is to do this once, not multiple times. Okay, then thank you everyone for the update. And before we leave, does anyone have any questions concerning this? Okay, then what's triumvirate? I like that word. Any thoughts on when we would get the next update? Are we looking at 2 weeks or 4 weeks or?
I mean, I'd probably in the next 2 weeks or so, I'll have a good, I think, in-house draft of all the revisions, you know, after maybe the next meeting that I have with Chris and Paul, and then, you know, be getting it into you guys and, you know, getting it slotted for another agenda. So it might not be on the next meeting, just given the submittal deadline for that. But potentially the one after that would be my guess.
And your interim, some of the things that we've been getting emailed, which are helping keep us abreast in between meetings, has been very helpful. So appreciate, you know, maintaining that as well.
Great. All right. We'll keep doing it.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night. Let's see. Next, we are looking at a notice of intent for 55 Main Street, Rafter Builders and GLM. Good evening, Joyce.
Good evening. Joyce Hastings from GLM Engineering, representing.
I could have told you that.
I wasn't sure where I am. Representing Rafter Builders, and we have, I'd like to share my screen.
Go ahead.
All right. Are you able to see my locus map?
It's almost there.
Almost.
There we go.
Okay, so we have filed a notice of intent for 55 Main Street, and this is the Dover assessor's map. So all these numbers on here are parcel numbers, not street numbers. So this highlighted yellow parcel is 55. This is Main Street here. This is Pleasant, and this is Haven, just to give you an indication of where we are. We are working on a property that has an existing dwelling that was constructed in 1950, the early 1950s. And we are proposing to demolish the existing house and to construct a new single-family dwelling. So just so you can see this red, the red that I have highlighted here, are you able to see this screen? All right, so the red that I have highlighted here is the existing house. That's what's out there now. It's got a concrete patio and a deck off the back. There's a driveway. There's a retaining wall here with a driveway. The driveway goes back to where my little hand is. And the driveway goes into the front. comes down to the back again to this area right here. And then the backyard is fenced in. There's an existing fence that runs right here. The reason we're filing is we have wetlands pretty much across the rear of the property. This is a 4.6 acre parcel, so it stretches out quite far. There's a wooded wetland along this side of the property that sets up, I have a 50, 70, and a 100-foot setback. And then there's an open body of water in this area, oops, a little bit further back, this area right here, that sets up a 50, 70, and a 100. So this is an area back here. The lawn goes kind of, this is the tree line, it's the drip edge actually that goes around the edge. And there's existing lawn that goes back a little bit beyond the pond. We're proposing to, whoops, a little too quick. We're proposing to demolish the existing house. Sorry, it's very sensitive here. Demolish the existing house to construct a new single-family dwelling. We pulled the house as far forward as we can, considering that we need to fit the septic system in the front yard. So the existing septic system is going in this area here with a tank that will connect to the house. We have used the existing driveway entrance and are providing basically a smaller driveway pavement footprint. We've eliminated the driveway that went to the front of the house, and we've eliminated this portion of the driveway behind the house. So you can see that our proposed house doesn't extend back further than what's there now, nor does it extend closer to the wetlands on this side of the property than what's there now. I've done a breakdown that I'll go over a little bit later, but first we're going to put an erosion control barrier around the limit of the project. We are proposing to do some grading on this side of the house in order to grade around the foundation itself, but that will be within the existing lawn. There are 3 trees we're proposing to remove. There's 1 tree that sits out in the lawn here that would be removed. There's a second there's a maple right here that would be removed in the lawn, and then there's another 16-inch spruce here. So we're proposing to remove 3 trees. We've located, I did an analysis of the trees that are coming down here. Janet pointed out that the analysis is very close to the 50%, but it does not exceed 50%. But I also didn't locate all the trees that are out here, but the trees that I have located allow me to not exceed that number. So the 3 trees that I'm removing are balanced out with what's more than balanced out with what's remaining in this area here. Again, our erosion control barrier will run, and it will be the orange construction fence, silt fence, and mulch stock. So just to look at numbers, I did a breakdown. Now, we revised the plan since we submitted it. There was previously a porch projection on the back that was removed. That was about 312 square feet. But we did a breakdown of what's out there now. So existing conditions in the 0 to 50, the house projects into that. It's about 10 square feet. You can see that a little bit of the house projects into the 50. And then in the 50 to the 70, no structure zone, there's 484 feet of house and the concrete patio for a total of 594 square feet. And that would be this again, this area right here within the 50 to the 70. And then within the 70 to the 100, the existing house and the concrete patio, there's 1,251 square feet. So the total impervious area surface in the buffer zone from 0 to 100 is 1,855. this was what we originally proposed, and it's been reduced by about 318 square feet. So we removed the house from 0 to 50. We've reduced the amount of house in the 50 to 70. And then there is an increase in the 70 to 100. So totally of the total project in the 100-foot buffer zone, there's a 530 square foot increase. We are infiltrating the entire surface of the roof in and out of the buffer zone into infiltration chambers, Cultec infiltration chambers from the rear and the back. And we left the calculations for the infiltration. We sized it based on the original 3,500 square foot roof area, not what we reduced down by taking off the porch in the back. So we left those systems sized the same. We've also shown on here the wetland bounds. We've added wetland bounds along the edge. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 wetland bounds along the edge of the project. And then we have the 3 wetland signs that are also along 1, 2, 3, along 4, excuse me, there are 4 along the edge of the project. While this portions of the fence will be removed during the construction of the house, the remainder of the fence will stay in place. That will act as a permanent barrier as far as backyard goes. And then when the project's finished, it will be reconnected to the house. So the fence will remain in place after the construction. Janet had talked about someone who had been concerned about a drain line from across the street onto the property. We actually located that drain line, and Janet, it's actually more than 50 feet off the limits of the property. So it's not related to this project. And I believe, that's the, Janet talked about wanting to continue this to walk the wetlands. I don't believe she had an opportunity with the weather we've had, and but that's the overview of what we're proposing, if you have any questions.
Okay.
Joyce, just on that pond, is there any proposal to mark the edge of that? And then also this backs up to Trout Brook, right? The property
The
goes
Trout
all.
Brook's at the very back limit of the property.
But
and
how
it's
far
about-
back does the lawn go? I've never been back there, but.
It goes back, honestly, it goes back a little bit beyond the pond. I mean, it starts to get wet, so.
Right. I see a
just little
split
bit
rail
beyond.
fence on the house next door to it that looks like it's at the edge of the pond. Is that right?
There is a split rail fence here that's, there was a fence over in this area here, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah. Is there any thought to wrapping that around or to protect?
We hadn't discussed any, because again, we're keeping all our work inside the fence. We try to use that fence as a physical barrier,
Right.
both, physical for everybody to see this is what the limit
Yeah,
is.
I guess I just worry about down the road, that they keep extending down that way.
I'm not, these are things that we can certainly discuss. We hadn't,
I mean, it's a tight site, no doubt about it. There's a lot of stuff wedged in there.
Yeah, and even though they didn't want to come so much closer to the street, the goal was to
Any chance to shift it to the right, any?
well, again, we were trying to get in.
That's what I was gonna suggest,
Yeah.
any way that we
Well,
could,
the problem is you've got to come in you're coming in off the street, and they're actually coming in, the garage is, coming down.
Is under, right?
Well,
Currently
it's not,
under.
it's not under, but it's on grade, but it allows them areas to come in, park, turn around, and come back out again. That they
I guess
wouldn't
what's the driveway edge to the edge of property?
we've got it's only got 48 feet. So, I mean, they've pulled it over pretty good. They've worked really hard to make this house work, because it's, they're trying to build a reasonable sized house, keeping in mind, trying to pull away from the wetland edge and still get a septic system in and, you know, be able to work. Because this driveway, this area was already all pavement, and they
Right.
managed to eliminate pavement going back towards the rear of the property. You know, we felt that we were improving what was there before.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah,
apologize.
agree.
So is there a site visit scheduled?
No.
Janet, is this? Oh,
No.
okay.
No,
So, well, Janet, what's your, I saw your notes on this, and, they're not, you know, they're pretty clear. And, I'm sure the applicant is aware of the waiver requests and so forth. Is there, why don't you fill us in on your review of this?
Yeah, so one of the waivers is a waiver to waive the winter delineation policy. And I think with warmer weather we have coming up, and I think just given the lay of the land, that shouldn't be an issue. But I would like to schedule that. Joyce, I'll be in touch with you.
Yeah.
And I'll let all the commissioners know when that is scheduled. My only comment would be, I think, well, we'll go out to the site. We previously had an RDA to do septic testing on this, and Rich Kirby from LEC did a preliminary wetland delineation, and he flagged that pond as a vernal pool. But I think we could condition the delineation that we are not making a determination, because no work is proposed back there. But any future owner will need to know that they would need to come back to us for any future work in the back area, the vernal pool or riverfront. My question, and we can talk about it on site a little bit, and I'm not sure what Craig's sense is, but I would like to see as mitigation for the 3 waiver requests, that a substantial amount of what is now lawn and being mowed right up to the edge of the vernal pool. And Rich Kirby did flag a large portion of lawn in the back as wetland based on soils, that we ask for mitigation and have a lot of that back portion naturalized and be protected. And I'm not sure, Joyce, do you think is it Craig's intent just to have lawn in the existing fence area?
yes, yes. And Rich Kirby is not involved in this project. I want to make that clear. This is not a LEC project. This is GLM. And
Right.
I also flagged the lawn in that area out back. So, yeah, so it's, you know, this is again, 1950s house, and you know, what's there is what's always been there. And, you know, I will talk to Craig. We can talk about it on site. I'm not opposed to, I'm not saying that, you know, certainly we will discuss that. But yeah, let's set up a time to go out and walk it. One of your comments, Janet, was that we should stake the house out. But I don't think that makes sense if you look at if I'm going to quickly, just briefly share again. I think we'll be able to figure out where we're going, because the back of the house is, the back of the existing house is kind of where the back of the house is going to be. So staking it isn't going to give us, we'll be able to figure out where we are because the existing house is still there. If that makes sense to you.
Okay. Yeah, it just would be visually helpful because you are on that southern side, the southeast side, you are bumping out towards the wetland.
Yeah, I think we can pull a tape over and see where we are. I don't think you're not going to have any issues seeing.
Okay. Is it possible for you to flag the trees that you are proposing to remove, or can we just do that visually?
We can, I'll go out before you're there and make sure the trees are visible.
So Joyce, are you looking at basically 3 trees?
Yes.
Okay. And are they fairly large? Is that why they came up quickly, you know, up to, you know, at 48% there?
Yeah. So I hadn't done I haven't looked, oftentimes we locate all the trees out there.
Mhm.
And my crew had just located the trees in the area of the house. They didn't take it all the way back to the wetlands. So that helped. It also
Mhm.
helped that it's an 18-inch, a 36-inch, and a 16-inch. So yes, the size did
Mhm.
matter.
Played a role there. Okay, and then I understand Janet's point, and I'm looking at just the Google Maps version of that. So the potential vernal pool, what's interesting is it's around 235 feet from the existing house, and since you're not going any further back, or farther back, it doesn't look like it's going to
It
get
doesn't
that
come
100.
into the fence. It's the 100 foot from the pond, and it's not even the edge of the pond. The 100 foot from the edge of the wetlands around the pond is
Mhm.
Maybe 30 feet outside the fence.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
So
So,
that's not the vernal pool or
Yep.
potential vernal pool.
So I think these seem like relatively easy questions that would be able to be addressed between you and Janet on site. And do commissioners have any questions on this? It does look like there's certainly been pains taken to mitigate things on a particularly narrow lot. So I think that's appreciated. And
Breakdown was really helpful. The 0 to
yeah,
50, 50 to 70.
yeah, that absolutely, and nothing untoward. I mean, benefits, and then standard stuff still within the buffer, but in the outer 30 feet. Um, does anyone have any other questions? Okay, then why don't Joyce and Janet discuss meeting there and set up a continuance to move forward with this.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
I'm on for the next one too.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay. This is the fun. It's okay. So let's then next up is 14 Hamlet's Crossing. Let's see.
So
Joyce,
this
why
is
don't you
just
what?
so this is just I don't believe Janet's really had an opportunity to look through this. And this 14 Hamlet's Crossing, if you will recall, is a request for certificate of compliance that we had submitted for the previous owner. These are new owners in place that were not involved in the cutting of trees, but are left with this, I'm sharing again, are left with this issue. So what we did since the last hearing, or since the last time we've discussed this, is we went out, and I don't know that this is going to do it justice here, but we went out and we located everything that's on between the edge of the lawn. So there's an edge of the lawn, there's a pool house, if you recall, a tennis court, little retaining wall around the backside of the pool house and the tennis court. And then this was it looks like it started out as a gardened area, and then at some point the previous owners cut down the trees within that area. So we located every stump on the in this area, and we from 0 to whether it met the 4-inch diameter or not, because keeping in mind too, now I'm locating stumps that are down on the ground. This isn't at diameter breast height. This is diameter at the stump height. So what we did was I got all my diameters and counted up all our trees, and this is what we were left with out there. So we kind of took, again, here's the chain link fence, and the work was done. Excuse me, the chain link fence runs like this, and the trees were all cut throughout here. I have different symbols, the triangles representing stumps that were below what I would have thought would be below 4 inches. So those are the triangles, and then I have the live trees are the dark dots that are out here that still remain out here, and then the circles with little hatches out there are all the stumps that are out there. So you can see there, and if I totaled them, there are a great number of stumps. So what we did was we took and came up, we did a plant, we talked about it at length, and I came up and planted, depending on how many, what you count for trees. So in the small diameters that there's like 101, and it looked like this was some kind of a managed garden, there were a lot of ornamental things, a lot of little pine that were cut, and those are at the small numbers. And so then we took and we came up and said, well, let's pick a 4 to 6 foot height tree, and I picked a whole bunch of native material, because as you had in your previous discussion, sometimes it's hard to get particular species. And then I put in circles where we would propose to plant throughout the entire area. And these plants would have to be supported through a monitoring period. It's not wet area, it's a kind of a high point. If you'll note, it's a very dry area that it rises up to a high point and then drops down towards the wetlands. This is the outer buffer zone. So these plants are going to have to be supported while they become established. So we put in those proposed trees, and I think our next step is to give Janet an opportunity to ruminate on it and make comments. Our clients wanted to be here. They're very invested in this because, again, this was not something that they did. They inherited it, but they are away on a family vacation and could not attend. No cell phone connection. So that's a kind of the brief presentation.
Okay. And Janet, can you fill us in on your take on this, please?
Yeah, so this is a major violation. There's quite a bit of land here, some really large trees. But I have a chance to go out to the site, so I'd like to do that with Joyce. But in accordance with our buffer zone restoration policy and guidelines, we usually do look for a diversity of plantings at each level, tree, shrub, and herbaceous layer. So something we can look at, Joyce, when we're out there. And then we'll go from there. Again, there is no way for inch to inch to replace here, but there might be some other on-site mitigation measures that could help compensate for the loss.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay. So this gives us, it took us a little while to get it, I believe, but so we're now proceeding. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. Then why don't you and why don't the two of you meet out there and take the next step? Any questions by commissioners at all? Okay.
And
Go ahead.
Joyce, just a quick, if you could perhaps give the commission an update on 6 Meadowbrook. I did forward to the commission your email about the situation there, but maybe you just want to do a quick summary.
Yeah. Okay. So
Oh, right.
so we received an order of conditions for 6 Meadowbrook to construct a new house, and David Parrish received the original in the mail and looked at it and called me in horror because he thought he was all set to proceed, but Janet had a very thorough first page, and when he read it, he realized his error in that he had started work, he had installed his erosion control barrier and had removed trees, no stumps and no grading or anything, but fortunately. But we immediately contacted Janet and let her know that, and that no work was being done, there was no machinery on the site, and that he would continue to follow the proper procedure, get everything recorded, make sure all the other steps were taken before we request a pre-construction hearing. So that was it. We just wanted to be sure. Again, your first page was so thorough. There was no question in his mind that he had stepped out of bounds.
Mhm.
So
You know, my first feeling on this when I heard about this was he's been here. He knows what to do.
yeah,
But the question I have is some of it, for example, 25 Miller Hill, his house was outside the envelope.
right.
You know, I'm not trying to make excuses, but my first thing was, you know, smack my head. And the next has really been what we've dealt with has been historically has been things where he's outside the buffer, but because of such things, he may not have had adequate erosion control for runoff or things like that. So I think at this point now but he did self-report.
He did,
And
absolutely.
and we do appreciate that, and we're hoping to never ever see it again.
As I did tell Janet, I have never done a notice of intent, and I've worked with David for years and years and years, and even in other towns, he either avoids wetlands or he inherits things that are already underway. So, he has great respect for the commission and was horrified that we were making that call. So.
Okay, well, appreciate that, and we're glad he felt that way.
But again, I can't tell you enough that Janet's first page is perfect. So no one can say they don't understand.
Oh, Janet, you stepped out for a moment. Did you hear that?
Yes, yep, I heard.
Okay, good. Yeah.
You're perfect.
No, I didn't say she's perfect. I said her first page is perfect.
No, the first page.
She's pretty perfect.
Right. You just if in case you didn't know if you didn't hear the qualifiers. Okay, then Janet, do you have any other questions concerning that? You feel comfortable there?
No, so Joyce, I'll be in touch tomorrow. We can set up a site visit for 55 Main and Hamlin's Crossing.
Yep, I'm free anytime for a phone call in the afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay.
Good night.
Thank you much.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Right, Joyce.
Okay. Did everyone have a chance to read the multiple documents about dam management that Lori sent out?
Yes.
Scintillating.
Deeply moving.
And somewhat repetitive. But anyway, let's see. Well, I don't know if that comes under the land management work group update. Let's start with the land management work group update.
Yes. Let's see, I pulled my notes together. So our next meeting for this month is tomorrow. So I believe we're pretty similar to where we were last week, except there's been a flurry of emails sorting out fasteners. So we're attempting to sort out fasteners. Lori, I think Rick had another thing to get. So he will send it to me and I will send it to you today, tomorrow, something like that. We're attempting to purchase fasteners, which is what I'm telling Lori. And I went to Tim's house and picked up the signs, which are now in my basement. So hopefully that is the last basement they will reside in. And we'll be hanging up pretty soon.
It's a theory.
Yeah. Then two other things. So we're working on the RFP for the strategic land management plan, and I need to find Amy and ask for the open space recreation plan that might go into it. And Greg pointed out that there's a big gap between the turnout for Wild Woods and the actual, walkway that seems like an ankle sprain. So I was going to contact DPW and see if they could dump a bunch of gravel. I don't know if they will want to charge the department, in which case I'll come back and say, talk to all of us, but I'm hoping they can just put it there.
Yeah, historically, they've been very good on that, so we'll see.
I would think that they would be good on that too.
And and that runoff, that seems to happen, from time to time.
Yeah.
I had a question. There seemed to be some back and forth on where to locate the sign and whether or not to put it on the kiosk there and stuff. And so I just thought I'd come in with my 2 cents because I think it's very hard to locate it on the front of that kiosk, even the post facing there. So I think originally the thought was there was a half post there that we could screw a full
Yeah.
post to, but I guess that half post is not that secure on the
it's
ground.
not stable.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so it seems to me one of the things, maybe just put a new post in. And I believe
Why,
I have,
why don't you like the kiosk, John?
well, Mike, I'm trying to envision, not having to walk around a protruding sign.
Oh, no,
If
it'll
I'm-
be up high enough.
Oh, is the
Yeah.
kiosk high
Yeah,
enough
we're
to
gonna
allow
put
you
it
to do?
way up at the top.
Oh, it is. I
Yeah.
thought the kiosk was
Because
only like 6 feet.
and the only thing we need, and I'll talk to you about this, Anna, is that if you're gonna mount it to the
Spacers.
frame,
Yeah.
it's gonna hit the, you can't mount it flush because the shingles stick out.
Right, that was my concern.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I have some discs of, the poly
The
stuff that I cut with,
PVC?
basically a hole saw
Okay.
cut out.
Mhm.
And those can act as standoffs. And I don't think you need more than 3/4.
Oh, okay, so that was what I
Okay.
was trying to envision. I thought the roof would be interfering. So that if that's great and it gets it up and nobody's gonna bang themselves on it,
Yeah.
then that seems decent.
No.
I also will check because I thought, I think down in my barn, I think I may have 1 or 2 signs there for other properties, but I don't know if the names are still the same. So I will look into that and let you know, Anna.
Okay.
So,
I-
and
Yeah,
I believe
um,
I have some
go ahead.
cedar posts too that we had ordered from somewhere. So,
You have those 4x4 posts?
yeah.
Yeah.
And, but then the town went and put all the, I think Lori ordered a bunch and then the town put them in, which actually got them done, which was great. So anyway, I'll check in and see what I have and I'll let you know, Anna.
Okay. I will,
Okay.
I'll give you a call, this week or early next week, just so we don't go another 2 weeks. And then
Sure.
hopefully I can collect all the signs in my basement.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
John, were those the posts that we bought and that was stored upstairs for a while? And
No, I don't think no, because upstairs
Okay.
in
I
my
don't know,
barn
it
or
went up to
upstairs
the
in the
attic
townhouse.
someplace in the townhouse or something.
Oh, no, these they came from somewhere else of which I don't recall.
Okay,
So
Lori, didn't we buy some that came to the office at one point?
Yes, they were stored sort of behind the front door there at the circular drive. And I know Carl Warnick at one point had told me that he needed to move them.
Right.
And I'm not sure, maybe none went to your barn, John?
I don't
None?
know because my daughter gave me a sign for my birthday that said that what goes into John's barn stays in John's barn. So there are a few other things in the barn besides the posts. So
Yeah.
I really don't know.
So I'm not sure. I can ask Carl if he moved them and where he moved them to. See if we
Okay.
still have some at the townhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
'cause
yeah,
I
that'd be
recall
fine.
there
And if
was
not,
some.
I'm willing to. I am decontenting my barn, so I have no
Oh,
problem giving those posts away. So even if they're they weren't Concom's in the first place, but okay. We got a correspondence. Well, does that complete
Yes,
your update?
Anna, do you need
Yeah.
any help? Like, what is the plan putting the signs up? Do you need a group of us like volunteering to help put the signs up?
I think it's going to be me, Rick, and Greg planning a weekend to just go and hang signs at some point.
Cool.
I'm hoping to plan it tomorrow. It's on our agenda. I think we could certainly take more people, but I think we'll have 3 and
Yeah,
be pretty solid.
let me know if it's
Yeah.
not too cold, I'll help you.
Me too.
Okay.
I would, this has been on the to-do list for 9 years, so I would be so satisfied to bang a couple nails into these signs going up into
Oh,
no.
we'll
Stainless
see
steel
if
screws.
stainless steel. Yeah.
nails or whatever. Sorry, Tim, I didn't mean
And
to.
Lori, do we have petty
technology.
cash that they could go to Dunkin's for? Or, so,
We just want to get our fasteners off Amazon. That's our goal right now.
right. So let's just keep our eye on the prize here. Okay, then we thank you, Anna. Then we did get copious amounts of stuff on dam safety, and it wasn't addressed came into the office, was dutifully sent out by Lori. some of it's not directly applicable. Janet, you were mentioning to me today that the town actually has some dams involved. One is like there's a 100-year-old plus sluiceway down at the corner of Mill and Willow that actually goes through the ground. It doesn't seem to fill with water, isn't used at all, but there was a water wheel there at some point in the past. And there's a dam associated with that. And there, in some other locations, Janet, you think the town has that?
So, that was my question when I saw these documents, is that we're on some list with the state as owning dams. And it wasn't clear if this came to the Concom because they're dams on our property that we're responsible for, which is not going to be a good thing. Or if these are on municipal land. So I just thought there was some follow-up needed to find out, do we have any dams on conservation land that trigger a dam? It has to be, I can't remember the width. It's like 6 feet by 8 feet, and it can be 8 feet above ground or in ground, or so there are dimensional requirements that trigger dam safety compliance.
I see.
Yeah,
Well,
I
maybe
don't, I don't think we have any.
No,
Yeah.
then the what I saw when I read the documents, they were worried about entrapment, the
Yeah.
roller. They were talking
Yeah.
a lot about the roller. And I know that one in Needham you're talking about. I think that's Needham's. That's not us,
Mhm.
John. That's Lewis Way.
No, we actually, the sluice is ours because I was looking at a piece of property there at
So
one
really,
point.
I thought
Yeah,
that
it's over.
park backed up to, I thought their
No,
park.
that the park, once you're on the other side, that park is Needham. Before you get to that, as Mill Street comes down,
Yep.
if you're coming from.
Oh, I know what you're
Center-
talking about. The other
Yeah.
one there. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like an old archaeological project. I mean, that is
Like a
really,
bypass.
it could be even 200 years old. It's ancient, and unused. But again, conservation, we do own a portion of that right on the river. We actually have a small portion of land there.
I thought we
we
owned the
talked-
other side there. I thought we
Yeah,
owned where they did that siphon work.
I don't
Remember-
recall this.
Remember,
siphon work.
the MWRA came in and they were doing the siphon work at the river.
I remember hearing
crossing
about it,
there.
but I didn't.
And
I
it's
didn't
on the
see
other
that.
side. It's the corner of Willow and
Mill.
Mill. Yeah, the right side.
Yeah. So there's where the dam is there. Then you used to have, to the right of the dam, you used to have the kayak gates.
Yep.
And as you're looking at where those roads all come together, there's a small triangle of land. And I think at one point we discussed pruning some of the trees there to maintain views when people drive down there,
nice.
so that
Yeah,
so they see that. So that would be a nice thing. That's something else to or if you want to jot that down as a potential maintenance project for us, as we're always looking for things to do the right thing. So that would be
List of
tree
maintenance.
maintenance. Yeah, tree maintenance at the corner of Willow and Mill. Let's see. So in dam wise, yeah, I saw the rolling concern. That was if you come up to a dam and it's requiring the waterway be navigable. And as far as I know of any dams that I've seen in town, most of them are not navigable. They're just created a pond or something like that.
Right. Further down
so-
the river, there is like a 18-inch, 2-foot high cross. There's a stream gauge there on
Oh,
Mill
right.
Street. On
Yep.
Mill Street, there is a little, but you'd never get rolled in under that unless you were 6 inches tall.
Mhm. Mhm. So okay, so I think it's something for us to keep. My sense is it probably went out to every single town. It just looked like somebody at DCR had spent a lot of time covering all their bases and updating things.
Well,
And I
they're trying to
wouldn't-
spend the money before the end of the financial year, right?
Good point. But so I think there may be 351 copies that went out. But at the same time, it's good for us to have in case we encounter something, a head scratcher.
So my only recollection of any pond issue was there was a I can't remember where this was. might have been off Wilsondale someplace. There was an earthen pond, an earthen dam. And something came up. I don't know, it was, do you
Well, there
remember,
is a
John?
there's a
It had a
dam.
tree growing on top of it, it's kinda-
Oh, yeah. There's a dam down there that has the there's the metal sculpture in the middle of the pond there.
Right,
We
it's on Wilsondale on the right. You
Yeah.
go over, it's a small little narrow, it's kind of the road narrows, and there's that, the
Yeah.
pond on the right, and then it looks like kind of a dam on the left, with kind of a mill house on the left.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not,
Yeah, no, I think and there's like a Cape style house that was renovated 20 years ago very nicely.
yes,
And then this
exactly.
was and then we had somebody who was looking at, Scott Garter was involved in potentially getting a very long driveway in across a wetland. That was on across the street from that dam. We also ran into years ago, well, for example, 7274 Farm Street. That's an earthen pond. There's some form of dam, I think, down there, but there's definitely banks around there. Mostly not by a dam, but they had talked to us when they did the 3 acres of invasives clearing. They had some trees right along the bank, which these dam regulations call out that if trees are along a dam, they can uproot and then cause a spillover that wreaks havoc downstream. I thought it was instructive just to be aware of things like that. And then there was I think the mother of all dams so far in Dover was the one on Farm Street, that used to have the sheep out in front. And
Right.
the old 1600s house there, and they have a lovely pond. And it's not until you walk around the backside and realize that the dam is, I don't know, 16 feet tall. An old stone
What
dam.
number on Farm Street, John?
Before you
right
get
near
the
Bridge
bridge,
Street.
yeah, before you get the bridge on the right, it's somebody bought it, put a entertainment complex up on the right-hand side, that you don't
Oh,
really
where
see
the
from the road.
hockey, where the new hockey rink is?
Right, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
And I can't
95?
remember.
It's
I
like
can't remember.
95 or something?
Yeah, it's 95 or
95.
We had a member at one point who lived down on Smith Street, and his family, he had grown up in that house. We had a commission member,
Oh, yeah.
Sandy something or other, maybe many years ago, for a couple of years. And so that they had sheep down at the very end of Smith Street. And
Oh,
they
I
also
didn't
had
know,
sheep
that
there.
makes sense, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but that's an awesome dam, which the new people put a whole bunch of money into. Okay, want to move on to agents reports? Sue, off to you, Janet.
Okay, so I had gotten a message from Lori that someone had called about some tree removals, maybe in a buffer zone at 15 Hamlin's Crossing. I did go out to the site. The owners were not there. The house is under renovation. A beautiful property. I'd never been out there before. A number of trees had been recently removed in the buffer, but in existing lawn. No damage, no tire tracks, nothing. And it was just 2 trees. So I don't think it warrants an enforcement order, but I would recommend a letter go out just reminding them that any kind of work in the buffer zone to the pond there. And there is also a stream on the site, just reminding them that they should call the office to see if any kind of approvals are needed. And I know they're aware of wetlands because they were the same people who came in over the summer who wanted a permit to set off fireworks for, I think it was a family member's wedding there.
It was their wedding.
Oh, okay. And we said, not a good idea.
Right.
Is that the old Coke House?
Yes, it is the old
Okay.
cookhouse.
Okay. Okay, that seems appropriate. Laura, if you could take care of that, please. Okay.
95 Center Street was something, let's see, we still haven't heard anything from those owners, so nothing new. Valley Farm, the 2 culvert outlets. I've been trading phone calls with Kevin McCabe. And I have a meeting with him next week, so I'll bring that up. I know Jim had concerns why that work hadn't been done since last summer.
And where are those culverts, Jim?
They dump right out into the edge of the field there, right across from, it's just on Main Street, it's two spill basins, two catch basins, the overflow runs out, and it's been
And, are
so
they
much
scouring?
water, it's been scouring out, yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
And then one of the other things I mentioned to Janet the other day is that 105, it looks like they had some survey done. And it looks like there's a corner marker down there on their property. I don't know if it's worth us putting in a corner bound at that time. I don't know if we have that availability.
Which one is 105?
That's the big French looking manor house
Oh,
there.
yeah, I think that's
on our
sold not too.
Yeah,
On
yeah.
on Main Street? Where are you talking to?
Haven Street, 105 Haven, the one in the middle of the field.
Oh, yeah,
across,
yeah.
across from the farm.
And wasn't it on the market for a while?
It was.
And it sold.
It did sell, okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know why they'd put a stake in the middle of the septic system, but
Okay.
it was a weird one, right? Like,
Mhm.
I don't know if it was located accurately when they put it in. So I'll be interested to see what the stake says that's in the middle of their field, because it's a mounded system
In the field in the front or in the back?
on the side
Oh, on
towards
the side.
towards the entry to Happy Valley there, you know, where you're
Oh,
coming
okay.
off of Haven
So
Street.
to
there.
the left side of their house?
Yep.
Yeah,
There's a
got it.
mounded system there, and there's a
You know,
stake.
that is something to, again, on a potential management list, which come up over the years, is whether to bound certain areas when appropriate. I think one of the big things was whether to bound portions of Wildwoods.
Yep.
And I don't, that was before your time, I think, Anna. But that was with the thoughts of, and I guess we're going to hear about the rail trail a little later on, but with the thoughts of rail trail going through there, bounding some of that. So why don't we, we can do that in concert with some of.
Yeah, I know
the
we've been
government
quoted, $400 a piece for the granite posts.
agencies.
It might be worth, doing 2 or 3 along the back line there, where the back
On
of
Haven, on Haven, Jim?
on the Haven field. Yeah. To be honest, Wally Weld there is on the corner of Haven and Main, and they're getting up there. It wouldn't.
Yeah,
I
they
keep
sell.
thinking about, the beautiful, it used to be obviously a horse property that's, as you come down Main, I guess it's Main Street.
Main to Pleasant there.
Right on that corner and that.
The Antonellis is there. Yeah.
But I keep thinking there should be some I keep thinking I know that's conservation land, but whatever, I would like some bounds along that way too.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. So the whole property doesn't need to be bounded, but certain
No.
things that are adjacent to private property,
Right.
just to.
There's a post right there that will
Mhm.
have a sign before you kind of get to their property, but
Mhm.
nice to have some bounds there.
But I just think, I think let's take advantage of somebody else's doing the survey. You know what I mean? We just can pay
No,
for the
that's
post.
Well, we'd probably still have to just cover our behind.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, so to have somebody
Based
else.
on our discussion with Artie, yes, I think. we
Yeah,
should.
to verify, yeah, but just to
Third
verify.
party
But
this one.
But we would get I'm sure we can get a discount for multiple locations there.
Yeah.
So, but it is something where we can take a look at it and try to budget for it, and then and then prioritize.
Yeah, I just think that someplace like that, particularly where it butts up against private property, would probably be pretty good. The
Yeah.
other place would be the far side of the other field, where it backs up against Trope Brook.
Right.
Adjacent to that property, to the private property as well, or
Yeah,
how
so
far-
if you go to the next field where they land the Medflight copters that we own,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
across the field, where is it Trope
Oh,
Brook
to the
or-
back of Trout Brook there, or
Yeah,
whatever it is.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It might be worth 2 or 3 there, because I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how far out that people are extending there.
Actually, I think there may be a wall there, but yeah, it's worth looking into. Okay, is the next one the update on Friar? Is that right, Janet?
So just back to 105, Jim and I thought, I'm gonna reach out to the owners, and we thought we would just pay a friendly visit and talk to them about the boundaries, since they're new owners there.
Oh, that's lovely. I think that's a
You know-
lovely, why not?
Don't dump lawn stuff in the.
No,
buffer.
but
on
also
our-
just
on our
be like,
property.
we're a friendly town, welcome, but, you know, we take our.
Yeah,
Watch
enjoy, but do not cut.
Right.
And,
Exactly.
mhm.
Do not put pesticides down.
Good trout fishing in there too.
We'll bring a little welcome basket with the wetland regulations. How's that?
Yeah,
I'll bring some
yeah.
cookies too.
The, good.
The Friar land site inspection is tomorrow.
Oh, what time?
I believe it's 9:30.
Okay, oh, can't make it.
Um, Amy and I think maybe some of the open space folks, and I think everyone got that. I think they're meeting at the end of the circle on Francis Street.
Okay, can somebody make sure they take photos of that dam if you find it? And do some photos from step back a little bit rather than having just a picture of a dam, so that we have an ability to see it in context. I think that would be helpful.
I can't make it tomorrow. Is anyone
So
else?
who's
I can't either.
so Amy's gonna make it? Okay. Okay. Can Lori? could you
9:30
email-
at Francis.
Yeah.
I'll
So
try.
I appreciate that. Lori, can you send an email to Amy to just ask her to take photos of the dam, please?
Or text her.
Actually, texting might be better. Yeah.
Text her.
It's so funny. I got those damn papers, and my first thought was call up Jonathan for a site visit. So I'm glad that's already scheduled.
Well, I thought that's why they popped up as we.
Well,
sent
no,
back
that
requests.
was my initial sense as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, and it turned out just to be coincidental. So, okay, and let's see, Algonquin.
Yeah, so I had sent out a copy of the DEP water quality certification for this work. The mainline gas pipeline has some anomalies. They're doing a site investigation. It's a 20-inch mainline gas pipeline, and it runs along the Charles River at the edge of Claybrook. It's 75 feet from the bank of the river. They do have to follow all your best management practices. They are technically exempt from the State Wetlands Act and also our local bylaw, but they do have to follow all the requirements of this particular permit because they will be doing work in the Charles River. So anyway, so that's that information on that. They said they'd issue me the, regular updates on that, but we can't require anything. The next item is the Dover Stormwater Management Bylaw, which is a revision. Actually, it's a whole new bylaw because our current stormwater bylaw is very weak. And it's quite long and I think confusing. And so there's a meeting next week on this. I know planning has looked at it and has had some recommendations. The focus for the tree preservation committee has been, well, we don't have a tree protection bylaw, but can we sneak some tree protections into this bylaw? And DPW seemed to be open to it. They have a consultant from Tata and Howard. I still think this is, for a bylaw, I think this is too long and confusing, but we'll see what we come up with. But anyways, I don't know if people had any thoughts. Our only direct involvement is review. So the Board of Selectmen is the Stormwater Authority. They've delegated administration and enforcement to DPW and the town engineer. So the town engineer is going to need to review these stormwater permits. It's an extra layer of protection, which is a really good thing. But the devil's always in the details. And is it really extra protection? One of the permits is the stormwater management plan itself, and this will be for work outside wetlands. If our jurisdiction is triggered, then we have primary review. And they would review, say, like at 25 Miller, most of the trees that came down were outside our jurisdiction. But this is a chance for us to work with the town engineer to look at both our jurisdictional areas, but also the jurisdictional areas like a foot outside our jurisdiction is still
Mhm.
potential impact. So I think there is some value here. But there's one section that simply requires that we will also review the stormwater management plan issued by the town engineer and provide our comments. So, and I'm not sure, we don't really know how many additional reviews this is going to trigger. It's generally anything over, in one section for erosion control, it's any new land disturbance over 5,500 feet. So it's,
Mhm.
for Dover, that's still a sizable area. And the thinking is that that will probably be a new home or a substantial redevelopment. This isn't going to be for decks. It's not going to be for smaller additions. You know, it's mainly new construction, but you do see some homes out there that can double in size. And so would want to look at those. So, I didn't know if people had any comments. I know Anna had a comment about our ability to maybe issue larger fines under the criminal section. And we are,
I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It was just the fine is $250 for a criminal violation. I was like, $250.
So it's an actual criminal violation?
Yeah.
Which I mean, normally these are civil, so the standard of, I don't know what if there's an extra standard to make something criminal. I have it up in front of me, but I haven't punched in criminal. I'm just looking at trees. Do you have an idea of where that, well, I'll look up criminal in a moment, but that's curious.
yeah, I had a question there too. It does say on page 11, criminal penalty. Any person who violates any provision shall be punished by a fine. Now, that sounds more like a civil penalty, not criminal. So
Yeah, I think somebody got a little ahead of themselves with their.
I believe our fines are technically criminal fines.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
So,
there was also a
That's why
section
they're
after
enforced
that
by
about
the
the-
sheriff.
Oh, are they?
Yes.
Oh, really? Oh, so we actually
believe
do
you.
have enforceable crime. I mean, for enforceable fines. Okay, no, I see that where it says in this criminal and non-criminal disposition.
usually
Oh,
they're.
and the Board of Selectmen can elect to utilize a
Mm.
non-criminal disposition as opposed to going, whole hog on somebody here. And then they talk about first, second, and third violations. But yeah, especially in a town like this, so by the time you hit your third violation, it's $300. Not except that it's per violation. So for example,
Per day.
per day, yeah. So if those
Could really mount up.
Yep. So yeah, that could, I mean, imagine if 12 and 14 Miller Hill were part of this. So
And then Anna, what was your other comment?
There was some other thing that triggered jurisdiction for us to review at an acre of disturbance.
Yeah.
That was well down in the bylaw, which I agree is extremely long and it's like a book, not a bylaw. It seemed like that was referencing NIPD's because it seemed like it was the same threshold, but since it's our bylaw, could it be smaller or maybe where we fall under that with 5,500? It seems either too big or already covered.
Right. So that was something that I was going to bring up too. It's just confusing what the thresholds are. There's several different thresholds for different things. And I don't know, town meeting's just going to tear this thing apart if it's confusing. So I don't know.
Also, who's going to read it? It's 40 pages.
Well, they may just say, so it's all going to be better. So can we just go ahead and, move the question? But there is a section about tree mitigation, which is interesting. And it's dealing with property setback zone, that's what the tree committee was working on. And that's based on what a whole bunch of other towns have. So if you have a 30-foot setback, you have to get permission to take trees down within that setback. And typically on the front, if it's 30 or 40. And that gives some teeth to things so that you're not denuding lots, at least from the street view. And they also mentioned, for the first time I've seen, a contribution to the Dover Tree Fund, according to the most recent contribution rate schedule. Interesting if they can pass that if they don't have a tree fund. So we'll see how how they're going to put this all together. So but it I mean, it is going in the right direction. I mean, we've been, I'm sure selectmen have dealt with it, but we've certainly had many of the complaints that people have when things get clear cut. So
So people, if you have any other questions or concerns, I think this is going to be revised probably substantially, so it'll probably come back to us.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine they're going to get this all done before they have to go to Blue Book. But they've personnel. So okay.
I don't
Next.
have a lot of information on the rail trail, but it's my understanding that it's Park and Rec's intent to go to town meeting and it's basically to take the temperature, because town meeting, the last time this was before town meeting was 2017.
Mhm.
Yep.
It happened, and then people didn't like the lease agreement, and so it all stalled. So
Yep.
I think some private citizens have put some pressure on Park and Rec to at least bring it forward to town meeting to say, hey, town meeting, are you still interested in that? Give us some money so we can review the cost estimates, which have probably gone up,
Mhm.
and then go forward, because the original deal was this wasn't going to cost the town anything.
Right,
Mhm.
so I don't understand how,
That deal was so long ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was
That
also
there was a company that would
Iron Horse.
basically do the work. Yeah, Iron Horse. They would do the work in exchange for the rails, the steel. Price of steel went down, they went out of business.
Right. Yeah, I think there are. Yeah.
but there are also, and you guys stopped me because I was new to this whole thing, but I thought there was a whole kind of smaller private group.
That was Adrian,
Yeah,
what's his
there
name?
was, but
Right, and
Yeah.
they said they would put up $1.5 million as, they would raise the money and that they would do the lease option with the MBTA.
Oh, well, that they would do it themselves.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
That was what my impression from
Yeah,
Mhm.
town meeting.
the lease is really a formality. The lease is just, it's really that you just ask them for permission. It's
From the MBTA.
But that was the sticking point that they brought up at town meeting, was what if there's hazardous materials because they did maintenance on the tracks?
Yeah, well,
So-
I mean, we went over all of this stuff
Yeah.
years ago. And it's
Exactly.
just all
Well, I think-
it's all noise.
It is
Well,
all,
it is, and not only that is now there's an additional 7 years since then to where there's so much more. There's even additional data, and there are rail trails going up, very quickly everywhere, where
Yes.
that noise has been exposed for the noise that it was just there to prevent things from moving forward. The
Yeah.
biggest thing we have is that this potential lease for the town, which cut off a quarter mile at either end, was dead on arrival with the MBTA. Other towns, there have been some groups that have gone in and created their own and created leases with MBTA and actually worked around the town and just were able to go ahead and do it regardless.
the
I
Medfield
mentioned
Trail is beautiful.
the what? Yeah, I mentioned, well, and I appreciate, Sarah. I thought what you discussed at the last meeting when this was brought up. Number one, thank you. I appreciate your growth on.
I'm a convert. I'm an
Yeah.
absolute convert, and I will be a convert for Dover. The only thing that I will say, sorry, John, to interrupt you, is that, as you know, I wear multiple hats. The one thing that I am concerned about with the Dover Rail Trail is, well, Medfield allows horses on their rail trail,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and Dover was never going to allow horses on the rail trail. So
Well, that's, and I think there's, like I
So
said,
that's a whole other, that's a
Yeah.
whole nother level
Other-
of,
That's interesting, Sarah, because when there was a rail trail committee and we talked to, several of the different people from the horse community, and they didn't want to be on the rail trail.
yeah, yeah.
Their concern was that some of the rail trail was too close to the horse trails and that the horses would be spooked.
Mm-hmm. And I recall that as well.
and I
Didn't-
think that was probably smoke and mirrors. And now that the Medfield Rail Trail has gone in literally parallel to one of our major trails that takes us to the race
interesting.
course.
Mhm.
I use the rail trail now all the time.
Mhm.
Well,
and
and
and everyone's lovely and it's just, it's.
well, and that's the other thing is this is not like the Minuteman Rail Trail. These are not crowded rail trails.
Right.
But the idea of you putting out the rakes for road apples, I thought that was phenomenal. That's
Well,
great.
and I'm kind of bummed. I need one's missing now, but I'll put 2 more
Yeah.
out. Like it's
No,
all great.
but
We're all
well,
getting along. We're all
I
getting.
think, yeah, and I think the idea of I would prefer to have Dover known for rather than opposition of things. The fact that Dover might actually fund horse waste rakes at way stations would be much nicer play for for the rest of the Commonwealth to hear about. So anyway,
Anyway, I didn't mean to digress about the horse
No,
thing.
no, but I think-
I am all for Dover.
Well, I'm just curious, is anybody against the rail trail or need more information?
Oh, I mean, I was always under the impression that the last time we voted on this, it was approved based
Yeah.
on a negotiated lease.
Yeah.
And that was the holdup. And then, of course, the MBTA told them to pound sand, told
Yeah.
the selectmen to pound sand. But as far as I
Yeah,
know, the money's still out there.
But
Yeah.
here's the thing that whole approval was designed to stop things.
Yeah,
because they
absolutely.
absolutely knew
Yeah.
that the MBTA was not going to go for it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That
So I
was
think
dead on arrival,
at this point, people have used, because I use both Needham and Medfield. And the idea of, number one, you generally can only walk so far before you have to turn around anyway. These are not through, even if they became through rails, they're just too long for people, but maybe on bikes. But even I gotta say, the bikes that I've encountered on the rail trails have been much slower than the bikes I encounter in Noannet. The folks who are attracted to hardcore mountain biking in Noannet, which interesting, I find they are cognizant. They do it like at the very end of the day when they think things are less populated. But somebody can come bombing around a corner.
Or first thing in the
But-
morning. I mean, I've seen that.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
Bikers are like out at 5:30, 6
Yeah.
o'clock.
But meanwhile, on the rail trail, there are no corners. And so,
it's not attractive. And
No, it's boring. It's boring for them, I would think.
well, that in our plan was also to discourage by not having a great surface the Lycra crowd. Sorry,
Mhm,
John,
right.
I know
Oh,
you're-
yeah, no, and there's no question. And I find, well, as part of the Lycra, although almost an X part because of multiple surgeries, but when I have those surgeries, I would like a flat piece of ground to walk on to
Yeah.
recover.
Yes.
And so but no, not Lycra crowd at this point, even as part of the Lycra crowd, I stopped going out between 5 and 6 at night. And I had racing experience and everything, and you just can't trust what's out there on the roads at this point. And the control we don't have over anything is the control over increasing traffic on our roads in town.
Right.
So it would be nice to have a respite that would allow that. The last thing I wanted to just bring up is that, and I mentioned this the last time, in terms of proportionality, I think a rail trail is something that the town should actually pay for on a recreational basis. View it like a lacrosse field or whatever, because and the idea of, as opposed to, and I mentioned this last time, $10 million for Hale in terms of versus, $1.5 million or $2 million or whatever it would be for a rail trail.
Oh, not even.
You know, and so is that, well, Amy seemed to differ, but I just, my feeling is for Dover residents, the rail trail would be so much more utilized and functional. And I think I mentioned at one point as well, I went with a biker friend, a Lycra friend over to Holliston at one point, and they're on drugs. I mean, they love their rail trail. You know, we stopped in and they love their rail trail so much. They think it's been, and it's not overcrowded, you know, which was one of the things raised the last time in town here. They just adore it. And they were so interested to get our opinion on it. And it's just stunning how it can bring a town together. So,
No, I completely, I mean, again, I'm a convert.
You
And
think we'd go through Needham?
well,
No, you
wouldn't be
can't
able-
because of the bridge. The bridge.
well,
bridge.
somebody, we don't know who that somebody was.
Millions to replace.
Somebody lit a fire on the bridge.
Yeah.
Chances are there's probably some mitigation or remediation on that bridge, because for pedestrian traffic versus train
Right.
traffic, there, you know, it might be much less expensive, but I think that would be a
No,
secondary thing.
even for just a pedestrian bridge.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously don't need a rail bridge anymore. I think it was $1 million plus. just
Yeah, so that's, well, maybe that could
lot of
be,
money.
some donor or whatnot.
I just want to go over to the Petit Four Bakery there on South Street.
Oh, well, yeah, I walked by that.
Yeah.
And they, but I never smelled it. They do
So
such a
it's
good
on,
job.
so it's on South Street?
Yeah, it's behind somebody's house there on
I
South.
know, I keep hearing about it, but I've never, right, okay.
No, and you can see it. They converted a garage in the back
Yep.
from the rail trail. You see it.
Yep.
But
Stop in and get a baguette and a few, Queen Amman and keep going. And I'm
yeah.
in.
Well, actually, you can order it ahead of time.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's and they're very, very good for anyone who's interested. Petit Four on.
I would highly recommend it. She started
on-
importing French butter again, so it's
on the web. So
real good.
So, so going back to the warrant or the article for the warrant, so this is, it's what the Park and Rec is putting this forward to see kind of what the response is at town meeting.
I think that's right, but it's in progress.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Well, this is great. So it sounds like if anything goes further, or maybe once we hear a little bit more about it, maybe if there's a vote for us to take to show support or something like that, we can look into that.
We've done that before too.
I know, and it's
I
just,
was against,
but
I
you know,
will-
this year Jerusalem. So
I've turned, I've drunk the Kool-Aid.
cool. That's great. So okay. An update on the oil spill.
Yes, so as you'll recall, at the end of December, when this spill occurred, we issued an emergency certification for preventative measures and any remedial measures within the wetland jurisdiction and the river. And that was for 60 days, so that's going to expire soon. So we do have a request from Eversource's licensed site professional. They would like the commission to vote tonight for a 60-day extension of that emergency certification.
They ever gonna finish this?
They did
And
finish it.
actually, it's
did they?
open.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
everything
open.
is.
It's
Yeah,
been
the
up for a
everything
week.
is, so this
Thank God.
extension is pretty much to maintain booms and take a look and see if anything else is still around there. But the road is complete. The road has been
Oh,
repaired.
opened up
was that
last
just today?
Wednesday.
'Cause I thought I was there yesterday.
No, it's last
No,
week.
a week ago Wednesday. I
Okay.
went into Needham Wednesday morning and half the side was closed, and then I came back and it was fully open. So
Great.
I didn't believe it, so I went down South Street.
I know.
I did that one Monday too.
So, okay, I'll entertain a motion to grant that extension.
Sure, move to extend the emergency permit for the cleanup of the Charles
Second.
from Eversource.
All in favor? Tim?
Aye.
Anna? Sarah?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And myself is an aye. Okay,
Wait,
and
okay,
then,
almost done here. I
Yeah.
sent out earlier today, sorry it was so late, a draft article. With hail coming up, I thought an article on why it's important to protect open space would be a good idea. It's a little long.
I didn't see it. I apologize, Janet.
I didn't see
So
that.
the deadline is Friday at noon, so if anyone has comments, if you have time, just shoot me your revisions by Friday at noon.
Okay.
And are we expecting hail to go on this town meeting?
Yes. But it could be a special town meeting. It could be its own, it may be its own night.
Yeah,
Which I
because
think
I
would
haven't
be-
really heard a whole lot more about it.
They keep kind of get feelers. They keep wanting to inform us of things. And I don't, Jim, were you at the last meeting? I can't recall. You were in and
Yep.
out when they, so all of a sudden it's, they're looking at the permission to put in almost 500,000 square feet of potential buildings, which is kind of an interesting, wrinkle into things.
Right.
Without telling us what they're actually, looking to do long term there.
And that was the sticking point for Westwood, right?
Right.
Well, more Westwood is more, they don't want, because of the way that the easement goes into Hale, they're the ones who are gonna be on call for fire, and so that's one of the reasons why they bagged out, because they're like, well, so.
I'll be interested to see, I mean, what's gonna happen there, right? So now, with
Well, I
Westwood.
think they in terms, now Westwood, and also they seem to be stuck in terms of actually providing actual answers for things. We don't know what it would cost per household. We don't know with this wrinkle about extra space, traffic becomes involved. We're not really clear what they're looking to do long term there. So it's, it's an interesting take and hard to believe they'll fit it in, give us enough information before town meeting. But we'll
Right,
see.
that's it, because I mean, they were going great guns, I went to a couple of, lunch and learns, the wine and dine, and then nothing. It just dropped
Yeah.
off the face of the earth, so.
Well, I think Westwood was a setback for them, so we'll see.
And I think in all defense too, it's like anything else, it's always the same people that keep doing
Going
all
to
the
the-
work. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I
Yeah.
think there's a level of burnout and.
Yeah, no, and I get it, get it.
Oh, yeah. No, and there's a lot of detail that they have to go into in order to be able to properly present it.
Right.
Let's see. I mean, the title, Janet, sounds great. I think that gets many Doverites exactly where their concerns are. So, if people have a chance to review that, if they have any notes to send to Janet directly, it's always be appreciated. And then Tisdale Drive.
Yes, so I did send out the Mass Housing, basically gave the project a green light over the town's many objections.
Really?
So their next step would be their next likely step would be back to us first for an NRAD and then apply to ZBA for.
So did they figure out who actually owns Tisdale, the street?
That was one of the town's concerns, and I think the state bounced it back and said, okay, figure that out.
Okay, so it would seem to me that, I mean, if Tisdale owns it, they'll have an awful lot of power there. So we'll see. And then
Anything on
next-
Troutbrook?
what's
Yeah.
that?
I
Anything
think,
on Troutbrook?
Yeah, Troutbrook, so ZBA closed their hearing and they are planning to vote on the 29th, and that could go several ways. I think regardless, it will be appealed. The abutters have an attorney. If it's approved, they will appeal it. And if it's denied, the applicant will appeal it. So I think that's headed to litigation.
Okay.
Either way, yeah.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, and I'm just seeing what the term is, I think it's called freeboard, which is something since we have not been able to see the updated maps for for FEMA flood expansion due to climate change, that many government agencies are taking the point of a thing called freeboard, which they take a floodplain height and then they add X amount to it.
Sure.
To accommodate these things, and that could affect. That's something I've been looking into, and I think it's something that we may want to bring up when it comes in front of us, because some of their grading is dealing with that 108-foot line, and if it goes to 109, it makes things smaller.
A lot
And I
smaller.
think, yeah. So and there's loads and loads of research out there.
It's called
We may
Freeboard, John?
Freeboard. Yeah. Let me just I keep thinking of Leonard Skinner, but
Right, I know. like- Well,
let's see if I
actually,
if I
there's well, there's Free Bird, and then there's
right, exactly. Yeah. So I'm just let's see, where did I see it?
we all did our
Oh
slogan.
yeah, it's good. No, it's called Freeboard. It's FEMA. The search I had was FEMA flood Freeboard. So Freeboard is the term.
Okay.
And they deal with that. For example, they deal with it all along the coast in the entire United States. When municipalities and also Army engineers look at people putting in houses on stilts, flood insurance, if it says that if you put your, this is what's required, flood insurance is 100% of what, especially in Florida, things have increased markedly.
Like South Carolina.
If you go 2 feet above that, in many areas, your insurance drops by half. So they look at it by, one way of, having the market make these determinations, but it's also clear that insurance companies have reviewed this and they know what's happening. That, the government may be a little slow at updating things, so they go ahead and say, okay, it's not a government rule, but our rule is you'll save money if you do this extra. So it is a well-recognized concept, and yeah, I believe it's worth us, even if we end up having to hire we'll have to hire an outside expert to review this, and we'll bring this to their attention because I'm concerned about it.
Well, it says, FEMA says they recommend the adoption of a 1-foot freeboard as a standard. It's not required by the National Flood Insurance Protection Plan, but
right.
They recommended, encouraged to adopt at least a 1-foot freeboard.
And so those are things that I think we would put in there, and we would probably send out to Mass Housing as well as relative to anything that we review. Let's see where it goes.
Can that be a regulation, or we have to go to town meeting?
I think in general, most of the projects that we encountered, people have the land to not worry about it.
Sure.
It's just a very small amount. I think that's worth looking into, because there's so few lots where that would actually apply. Even down on Rivers,
all down Claybrook and Riverside, and
well, but even the lots in Claybrook, we ran into when we were dealing with Larry Fishman down in his septic system ran into issues. They were looking at filling in something closer to the river. Once he got a little further, and that's a very flat lot. Once he got further away, he was able to deal with that. He was just barely outside of it. But most of the lots, especially on the opposite side, they have enough land to be and enough rise to deal with it. So it would affect very, very few. And one of the reasons it may affect these is because these lots were dead for so long.
Yeah, they're at 108 as it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, they get permission to bypass our zoning, and then they can go ahead and create a new array system. Right. But it's still, the concern is, relative to foundations and things of that sort. So, yeah, I think it's something for us to be cognizant of and bring it to any outside expert that we utilize.
Yeah.
So.
It's just looking quickly at our definition under our regulations of bordering land subject to flooding. And it does say we rely on the National Flood Insurance Program rate maps, though presumed to be correct unless credible evidence to the contrary is presented.
Which could go either way if a developer wanted to say that they weren't accurate, but it does go the other way too. And like you just pulled up, Jim.
Pretty credible.
Yeah, so if FEMA and like you just pulled up that 1-foot situation, that seems like it would fold right into that to at least be in the mix there. So
yeah, I think we should look at that and say our typical recommendation is 1 foot of freeboard. Because as well as I what's going to happen. we ran into it with that one for Artie where he was 6 inches off on his grading and it was a big deal, right? Like, do you remember
For
that?
flooding?
Yeah, we
No.
had the flood storage. Remember that, Janet? There was
Oh,
one
oh,
where
on,
it was
Cl-
off
on,
like
on Claybrook?
on Claybrook. Yeah, they were
Yeah.
off 6 inches on the grading and it was a mess.
Well, what was interesting is DEP, when I mentioned about Larry Fisher's house, it was DEP that pulled it out to our attention.
Yeah.
And forever emblazoned 108 on our foreheads.
Right.
You know, that,
It's the invisible ink tattoo.
right. That they brought it to our attention that that's where the floodplain was, and that this was somebody who was putting in a system, and just the grading over the system was going to take it to like 109, and they said no, you're filling in floodplain, and they had to revise their whole system. Yeah, so I think there's this is certainly an avenue, and we're not necessarily working in active opposition. We just want to
No.
make sure that things are done appropriately.
Exactly.
Great. Anyone have anything else they'd like to add?
I'm thankful that we don't live in the town of Milton because of the vote that they just went through.
Well, and did you see that the governor didn't waste any time?
No.
She just pulled back a whole bunch of money from them.
But I mean, my understanding was it was $1.7 million at risk
for us or for them?
for the town, for Milton.
Yeah, and they lost 1.4 this morning from Governor Healy said, well, that's the way you're going to be. And then they're taken off the list for being able to apply for more.
Oh, wow.
So we shall see.
That'll be interesting to see how it plays out, right? I mean, that'll go through litigation and everything.
Oh,
else.
yeah. So it's and I'm not clear on where we stand. I mean, if we were to be really proximal to public transportation, then we'd be down by the corner of Summer and Chestnut Street, but everything's too wet down there. So I don't know what zone we would have in Dover.
But we don't fall in under the transit, right?
We fall into 50% of required. So if they look at
The
you and see,
neighboring towns.
yeah, if you need 10% housing in Needham, for example, we would need 5% of our housing somewhere.
But we're
in town.
required to be 10% anyway.
Well, it's interesting. So we're required to be 10% for 40B reasons, but then for getting grants and things like that from the state, we're required as it moves forward. We're required to come up with a plan to account for around 5% for.
We're at 2 now, so.
Yeah. So
Well, the thing is, the MBTA Communities Act only requires that the town pass the zoning. It doesn't mean.
that you have to build it. Interesting. Yeah.
You don't have to build it, you just have to pass the zoning. It's like the lowest bar possible.
Right,
So-
and so the town, right.
Yeah. So we'll cross that when we come to it, but we'll
It'll be interesting.
yeah.
Well, it's just yeah, and I have friends in Milton on both sides, so I had to hear at the Hillside Pub. Trying to stay control. I'm like, everyone's anyway.
Yeah. So Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't live in Milton.
So okay, well, great. Well, thank you very much. This has been a lovely meeting and a lovely time for ending the meeting. So hearing no objection.
Thank you, John. Early.
Welcome, Ed. Thank you, and the meeting is adjourned.
Excellent.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Night, everybody.
Bye-bye.